Hi guys, welcome to our first virtual field trip. This morning we're going to Rio Grande del Norte National Monument to check out some petroglyphs. The really cool thing about this field trip location is it's super close to where we live, so it's not that hard to get there. So we are now at the Wild Rivers Recreation Area in the Rio Grande del Norte National Monument. Today we are looking for petroglyphs. So what are petroglyphs? Petroglyphs are a form of rock art created by the ancient people who used to live here in the Southwest. And we have actually quite a bit of petroglyphs here in New Mexico, and we're super lucky because we have them here really close to where we live. So just some fun facts about the Rio Grande Gorge, which is what we're in right now. Cool. That make it really helpful and a really nice hot spot for where these kind of petroglyph things can happen. So we're in a canyon, we're down deep. The river is all the way at the bottom, which creates something called an inverted ecosystem. That means things that would usually be higher in elevation are actually lower in elevation, like way down at the bottom. This is because down in the gorge, things are a lot colder and there's a lot more water. So you get trees that would normally happen way up on mountains down here in the middle of the desert. It's super cool. Also, we have something called a riparian zone. A riparian zone is where a river flows through, and there's lots of trees and plants and water and resources all around it. So when you go down into the gorge, you have all these extra resources that you don't necessarily have up top, where it's just chamizo and cactus. We made it to the bottom of the canyon. As you can see, this is some really big, beautiful ponderosa pine trees and stuff that you normally wouldn't see until you were way up at the top of a tall mountain. But because it's so much wetter down here and so much cooler down here, you get ponderosas, which is awesome. But besides the point, because we are hunting for petroglyphs. Now, the only tricky thing about petroglyphs is that they can be kind of hard to find. So that's our goal today, is to do a little searching, a little investigating, and to find some petroglyphs. We found one! So this is a really big, beautiful ram petroglyph. It's super cool. It's actually a lot easier to see on the camera than it is in real life. It's a little bit faded. So things we know about the petroglyphs around here isn't a lot. It's a little tricky to piece information together. But based off the style and the way that they were made, we can guess that the early ancestral Pueblo were the people who created them. That means they were made anywhere from 200 AD to 1300 AD. So like a couple thousand years ago. Now don't get me wrong, as far as people who have been in New Mexico, this is actually pretty recent. People have been here for tens of thousands of years. So this is pretty close to us, only 2,500 years ago. You gotta be careful when hunting for petroglyphs, because there's cactus literally everywhere. You could get a pokey in your foot so easy. So we found some more, guys. These are like little tiny deer. You can see their antlers. Maybe a little fox or a dog. Look at those little canines. This is so cool. But this isn't even the coolest thing on this rock. My lovely assistant Nadia is going to explain what the coolest thing on this rock is.
If you can see these, they kind of look like they tried to do trees or something. But these are actually antlers of a really big petroglyph. So these are the antlers. There's two legs right here for the front legs, and then there's back legs right here. And this whole part right here is the body. It's kind of hard to see. It's a little bit faded, but that's actually just one big deer petroglyph.
That's freaking huge. That could be a deer or an elk. And it's ginormous. That's awesome. So this is really fun. We weren't expecting to, but we found some more petroglyphs. So we've got another little deer thing, or donkey. It wouldn't be a donkey, they weren't here yet, but something. And then over here, those almost look like little bird tracks. Sick. Okay guys, we've journeyed a little farther and we have found some more petroglyphs. We have this one, and I honestly don't know what that means. What could that possibly be? Is it a rib cage? Is it some kind of bug, some kind of animal? I don't know, but if you look here on top of it, you'll see this, which is like those two marks there, and then a dot and a dot. That to me looks like an animal track. Which kind of animal track? I'm not sure if I could tell you. Maybe a rabbit or something else that hops along where it has a long front track and two little dots behind. Also, if we look more over there, we can see another of these antlers attached to a big deer down here. That's so cool. And now it's getting hot, but we're wandering, and we're wandering back this way, and if we look, there's another deer kind of thing right there. Whoa. And finally, our grand finale, this rock, which has tons of petroglyphs on it. If we look closely, we can see a family of bighorn sheep, which lived here apparently a couple thousand years ago. We've got smaller animals, maybe ones with little antlers on them. Up here, if you can see them, they're a little faded, so it's hard to tell. And we've got maybe a little fox, and then there's more deer and more canines over there. Now the fun part, we get to climb. So as we go up a little bit, we can see this really cool one. We have a human figure. So it's hard to tell, is that a person or is that one of their like deities or anything like that? But we've got a human figure right there. If you look a little taller, we've got more. Let's go look at them. So if we look right here, we've got more of these deer. You can actually see them way more clearly on this camera than you can on in real life. They're a little bit faded. We've also got like one little guy over there. And then I'm gonna show you some of the coolest ones we have. So guys, now that we're way at the top, we can see there's a ton of different petroglyphs up here. We have one of those little guys, those human figures we saw over there. They're on the side of the rock. We can see something that almost looks like a yucca plant with all its spikes. We have more tracks. Those kind of look maybe like rabbit tracks, or if anybody's a really good hunter, you can tell me what kind of tracks they look like. We've also got these cool squiggly lines that are like snakes. And then even like what looks like a human foot outline over here, which is super cool. There's more tracks, another human foot, something else that maybe looks like bird tracks or kind of plant. We have this weird squiggly line that I don't know what it means, and that weird squiggly line that I don't know what it means. But the coolest one is this bear print they've got going. How clear is that you can just tell that that's a bear paw? Here, let me let it get in the sun a little bit and we'll see the bear paw. Isn't that sick? We've also got some down here and stuff, which is awesome. So guys, let's talk really fast about two more things before we kind of wrap up this video. First of all, how are these things made? So they were made using techniques called like pecking and carving and etching, where they would actually sometimes take other rocks and hit their carving tool rock into the rock to peck off just this top layer that we have going on and create that lighter image from beneath. Which actually leads us to how we know how old these things are. So we know how old they are based off this thing called desert varnish. Desert varnish is made of dust, other material, bacteria, that all kind of comes together and creates this dark layer on top of the rock. So that dark layer settles on top of the rock, gets really, really hard, almost becomes part of the rock. And then they would come along and etch on top of it, taking that desert varnish off to reveal the true lighter color underneath. Now, if we look closer, we can see that on some of these petroglyphs, most of them, that desert varnish has started to creep back onto the petroglyph, which is how scientists and archaeologists can tell how old it is by looking at how much of that desert varnish has started to overlay on top of the petroglyph. So this is why there's a really important rule about petroglyphs. You cannot ever touch them. If you touch a petroglyph, you could damage the image itself, or you could go ahead and mess up some of that desert varnish that is valuable information to scientists and archaeologists. We want to preserve these as long as possible and keep them in the best condition possible so that people can look at them for even thousands of more years. Please, if you come out and find petroglyphs on your own, that's super awesome. You really should, but do not touch them, do not mess with them. And then I have one more thing. Someone has come along pretty recently and scratched their initials into the rock. Please don't do this. That damages the rock and it damages the integrity of the other petroglyphs that are here. We want to keep these as perfect and pristine and beautiful as possible. So please don't mess with them, touch them, or carve around them. Guys, we were coming back from off the top of this rock, being very careful not to step on them, and we realized that these two right here look like moose. Look how round his nose are and how fat his antlers are. This guy, not as much, but kind of a little bit too. I wonder if there were moose.
right here does. He's got like bushy antlers.
He's got bushy antlers. All right, guys, we made it back to the top of the trail. This was a super successful petroglyph hunt. I hope you learned some things. These early ancestral Pueblo were here, they were thriving, they were semi-nomadic, and they made really, really cool rock art. Thanks for coming along on our virtual field trip. See you guys later.